So let's move on to the Kindersley Clippers. There's a lot to be excited about here with the Kindersley Clippers, I would say. Obviously, last year was a huge step forward for this team, this franchise. 25, 26, 3-2 for 55 points. After years of finishing near the bottom of the league, they took a big step forward last year with a young roster. This year, that young roster is 1 year older, and they have a bunch of good returning players, Nugsy. So what can you tell me about this Kindersley team who might be on the rise?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they took a step forward last year, actually, to push back on you a little bit. They were 8 2 years ago. They were 8th last year.
Okay.
So that's, I guess, the same, pretty much.
In terms of that, it's
But,
not
I mean,
that
obviously,
big, but
Kyle
it felt
Schneider
different.
gets his first gig.
Yeah.
Just like Connor Logan, we didn't really mention with Battlefords. Congratulations
Shout
to
out
you
Connor
both
Logan. Yeah.
getting your first head coaching gigs. And Ryan Gibson will be the GM as well in Kindersley. But if there's no excuse for Humboldt this year, there's no excuse for sure for Kindersley either. And the expectation is the huge step forward this year for Kindersley. 15 returning impact players. And that doesn't even include Austin Oshovi, who they got on the back end back from North Iowa, and the Null, who was, of course, with Kindersley a couple years ago.
Yes.
And they got Van Egger, of course, former Notre Dame Hound legend. With the last year from the Prince George Cougars, had a great year there. Well, the team had a great year. He was, an important guy for the character and for the room, for the grit of that team up in the Dub. I think he'll be a much more relied on player offensively, this season. But there is a lot of talent for Kyle Schneider to deal with up front. It feels like the Perlinger twins have been in the league for 100 years, and they're only 07s. But they're both, over 100 games in the league.
They're only 18.
And they're only 18. And Jackson Herchak, obviously, again, back. He was really trying to make the dub with PA. It didn't work out, but again, he should light the league on fire again this year as long as he can stay healthy. Avery Johnson, another name that I've got really big eyes on. 10 of his 15 points last year were on the power play. So in terms of power play quarterbacks, especially as a forward, he may be the best in the league. But again, there's a lot to like on this Kindersley team. I know you love the goalies. Brett O'Halloran back again. Wasn't supposed to have the experience that he had last year, stepping in for Cody Jamin's long-term injury. But he did great. He was a Rookie of the Year candidate, and he was a Goalie of the Year candidate. Can't ask for more from Brett O'Halloran last year either.
Yeah, definitely one of the teams I look at with some of the most comfort, I would say, in net. So definitely having Brett O'Halloran, I think, is going to be massive. Like you said, a lot of returning forwards, almost a full group of returning defensemen as well. When you look at guys like Russ Demo, Jacob Dennis, you mentioned Jackson Herchak, Mason Egan is back. So a very solid group. Austin Oshawi, who you mentioned as well. Who I just think it's one of those teams where sometimes the group of returners tells a whole lot in terms of preseason prediction, and I feel like they're one of the more complete teams in terms of returning players. Will Christian, another guy we mentioned from last year who was among their league team leaders in scoring last year.
Another
Ethan
one.
Sotner. We can go on. There's a lot of guys. Brock Evans.
Years.
Right. They just traded for Kagan Lowe, who is a young player. But who's a new player, Nugsy, that you're really excited about with this roster of otherwise a lot of returning players?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned they kind of have 5 returning D-men. Obviously, Mason Egan is another one on the back end. But Cohen Loney, the second you walk into the rink in Kindersley, you're going to notice Cohen Loney, just because he's 6'7", 06 D-man, had a good year in Junior B and BC last year. Isn't he got interesting potential? He'll be well insulated. If it works out when you have a D-man and a kid that's that big, you want to give him a try and see what he can do, but he did really well in the preseason. Ryan Gibson, the GM in Kindersley, really likes him a lot. And, again, kind of that Zdeno Chara type presence on the back end could be really big for Kindersley.
Never hurts to have a guy, like you said, that's that big. I think I could go on and on about returning players up front, but I'm going to go with Jackson Herchak. I think this guy is at 32 points as a 17-year-old last year in 48 games. I think he's going to be, like you mentioned, he's going to light this league on fire. I feel like this year as an 18-year-old, centerpiece of a lot of offensive production, especially coming off that blue line that's going to have a lot of puck movers on it. I think he's going to be a big centerpiece for that. Power play quarterback, obviously out there all the time. So I look for a guy like Jackson Herchak as an 18-year-old. I think he could be not just among the league leaders on the blue line, but I think the league leaders in points overall. I think he could be that kind of player this year. So
it should be interesting too. Obviously, we didn't mention with Connor Miller in Humboldt the chances of him coming to play for Team Canada at the World Junior A Challenge. Even though he's a returner from Canada West, they have a unified Team Canada this year coming up. Jackson Herchak is also a returner from that team, but he's an 07. So Herchak is certainly a guy to watch for that World Junior A Challenge team as well.
Yeah, so a lot to be looking forward to, I think, at the Interpipeline Arena this year in Kindersley. It's going to be a ton of fun, I think, so look forward to that.